Hi everyone, RW here, and welcome to episode number 3 of Quo Vadimus. Quo Vadimus, it's Latin for where are we going? And you may be a new viewer to this series, and if you are, welcome. And I should tell you a little bit about what this series is all about. Originally, this series started back in April of last year. Actually, on April the 15th, I released the first episode of Quo Vadimus. And it was a decision made to go and provide some commentary on what was happening locally in where I live with respect to COVID-19. And why that happened was that one of these software making programs that I use to create videos went and actually said we'd like to go and do something socially redeeming, and we'd like to go and hear from the people that use our software and have them create videos telling us what's happening where they live with respect to COVID. So that's how all this started. And originally I wanted to go and release a video once every 3 months. Well, we had episode 1 that was released in April. Episode 2 was released in July of last year. And then, unfortunately, there was a break, and I think all of us were dealing with fatigue. So I decided to go, and it's been a while. It's been about 9 months now since I released a video on dealing with COVID where I live. So I thought the timing was great. And I then discovered that, no, it's been 1 year as of yesterday, April the 15th, that I started this infrequent series. So time has gone by very quickly. But there's a lot to talk about since the last episode, so let's get into it. I live in Canada, by the way, and like every other country on the globe, we're still dealing, unfortunately, with the ravaging of COVID-19. And unfortunately, and the researchers indicated that there was always the possibility of variants resulting from the original virus. And that's unfortunately happening. Some of them have been extremely more aggressive with respect to how they spread and the outcomes for those unfortunate people that pick up these variants. So it's been horrible. And when we started the year 2020, back in January of that year, I saw a news piece saying that, there's really no track record. This is a brand new virus, and that the last markers that we had historically with respect to viruses, would have been the Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu ended up lasting for 3 years, and there were apparently 3 waves, I believe, and each wave was worse than the previous one. Well, when COVID started to become an issue, some of the medical researchers and practitioners said COVID could be 4 to 5 years that we're going to be dealing with this. And right now, that's maybe not so far-fetched, unfortunately. But what I want to touch upon is what's happened in Canada and where I live personally, my home province. And so as of the recording of this footage, which would be on Friday, April the 16th, 2021, in Canada, unfortunately, we've seen a total number of COVID cases, and the number is 1,096,716. And that's a pretty significant number. Now, on the good news side, there's been 990,073 individuals who have recovered, and that's really heartwarming to see. And currently in Canada as a whole, there's about 83,143 individuals who are currently coping with their exposure to COVID. So in other words, maybe hospitalized, maybe isolating, maybe somewhere in between. And then there's the unfortunate number of individuals who've died. And in Canada, as of the recording of this video, there's been 23,500 deaths directly because of COVID. And that's a big number. That's a very significant number. Now, for my own province, I live in Manitoba, and in Manitoba, we've had a total of 35,688 cases. And the population of Manitoba is over 1 million, so 35,006 is, significant. The good news is there's been 33,205 individuals that have recovered, which is a good thing to see. Currently, there's 1,528 individuals who are active, in other words, either hospitalized, self-isolating, somewhere in between. And then, unfortunately, the number of deaths in this province is 955. So I kind of looked at the numbers, and on a provincial basis in Canada, I believe per capita, my home province we're number 2 with respect to per capita deaths because of COVID, which was a little surprising when I did some research prior to shooting this video footage. So that's kind of where the numbers are right now. And globally, I kind of keep abreast of what's happening in other countries. Obviously, the U.S., our southern border of Canada. It's been heart-wrenching to see the numbers there. In Europe, in Asia, there have been a few countries that locked down extremely hard on the first wave, and they were successful in pretty well containing or isolating future potential outbreaks for COVID. And to those countries, I applaud you, because you've done a really good job. A lot of other countries, unfortunately, people didn't want to pay attention, or they didn't want to go and kind of do what they should have done, and they're paying the price. So when I was looking at a graph, for example, for Canada for COVID, and what's happened is that, yes, we had the first wave, and then we peaked, and then we came down. But what happened is, if this was where the peak was originally, or I shouldn't say the peak, but the period prior to the peak on the first wave, well, we did get down to this point. But on the second wave, we went up, but we didn't come down to the baseline. So we were like this. And that was surprising to see. And ironically, yesterday, April the 15th, Canada has recorded its single worst day for new cases of COVID-19 and the variants. So for all practical purposes, this isn't over, not in Canada, and it doesn't look like it's over for most of the globe either. The real issue right now is the variants, because some of the variants from the original COVID may be less severe, and that would be a great thing, but there's always the possibility, excuse me, there's always the possibility that a variant could be more contagious, more lethal, more deadly than the original. And obviously we've seen that with some of the variants. The UK variant, obviously, the estimate is about 30% more easily transmittable or infectious. There's the Brazilian variant, which actually just arrived in my home province. And so there's this possibility, this strong possibility that even with vaccines, and it's kind of amazing with the speed that vaccines were able to be developed and tested and then obviously released, but it's obviously a matter of time, because you need a lot of the population to be vaccinated, and you're hoping that by the time they get their second dosage, if they're required, or if there's going to be ongoing need for boosters, either yearly or every 2 years or every 3 years, we don't know. But there's also the possibility that if the variants keep coming, that at some point they're going to become more. They could potentially become a lot more lethal, a lot easier to spread, or they may simply be. They may not. When it comes to vaccines, the vaccines won't do anything. In other words, they're going to go and just continue on. And that's probably the biggest concern right now, globally, for the medical practitioners and the researchers. Because if we end up with new variants that are now resistant to vaccines, it effectively puts us all back at square one, and we'll be basically on a hamster wheel, and there's no way of breaking the cycle. We're going to keep running and trying to accomplish something, but it'll never happen, because the virus is keeping pace with us, or heaven forbid, it's actually running faster than we are. So that's what we really have to be concerned with moving forward. We're starting to see the economic fallout of all of this, and there's more businesses that obviously are shutting their doors. In Ontario, as an example, there's now another 4-week stay-at-home order, and it's tough for a business to open and close and then restart and then close or slow down. And at some point, it's not going to be practical or financially possible for a lot of these businesses to continue on. So we've seen some of it, and there's probably more coming. What I want to talk a little bit about in this video is about the death rate, and with respect to COVID. And we've all come across individuals who say, well, it's a virus, it's not contagious, it's not deadly, if I get it, I'll get over it, there's no problems. And that's not a good attitude given the circumstances when you kind of do some research and you understand exactly how much more serious this matter is. So what I did today was I actually went and got on the computer, went on the internet, went to the Canadian government's website, and I wanted to know what the death rate was for your standard flu, your standard influenza. And what I found out was pretty interesting, and that is that your standard flu that, is seasonal, comes around every year globally. Okay, so we're talking, in a planet with over 7 billion people. There's about a billion people that get the flu yearly. All right, so it's a number, and it's a big number. When you're talking billions of people, 1 billion out of 7 is fairly significant. But what's really interesting is that normally standard influenza worldwide, normally there's about anywhere from about 290,000 to 650,000 deaths directly because of your standard flu. All right? And those numbers are fairly big. I mean, 290,000 of anything is big. 650,000 of anything is even a bigger thing. But you want to look at the death rate. And so what happens is that if you get a billion people who pick up the standard flu, and 290,000 of them are going to go and die, unfortunately, because of it. What you've got is everybody else, the balance of that 1 billion number are people that lived through it. Okay? So when you look at 290,000 deaths over the course of a year, with 1 billion people who have been who caught the standard flu, the death rate is, in percentage terms, is 0.02%. All right? If you go and take a look at the higher number of the range, it's 650,000. Well, 650,000 people that died because they got the standard flu out of 1 billion, that means the difference are people that survived it. And so if you go and take kind of the worst case scenario of 650,000, what that means is that you have a death rate in that particular case of 0.065%. So it's a really, really insignificant number. Or let me put it a real simple way. You know 100 people, okay? And you know them because either they're friends, they're family, they're co-workers, all right? But you know 100 people, all right? And they all got the flu, okay? So, given statistics here, all right? What's the best case scenario? Well, your 100 friends, your family members, your co-workers who got the flu, best case scenario, none of them died. 0. Okay? Because at 0.02%, everybody survived. Okay? And even under the worst case scenario, at 0.065%. What that means is those 100 people that you know, their friends, your family, your co-workers, who all got the flu, all survived it. Okay? So when people tell you that the common flu kills, yes, the common flu does kill some people. But statistically, if you get the flu, you're going to live through it. You're not going to be a casualty. You're not going to die. Okay? Now, that's the reality with the common flu. With COVID, there's a whole different issue. And so now I want to kind of explain the death rates, because it's important. And I want to thank, I want to shout out here to an individual that has been making videos on COVID. And I was fortunate to stumble across one of his early videos back in April last year of 2020. And I'm deeply appreciative of the fact that I did stumble across that video, and I've been taking in the insight of the individual that produced the video. So I want to give a shout out to a gentleman by the name of Dr. Duck Vong. And Dr. Vong is a now retired weight loss doctor, and he resides in the great state of Texas. And I've appreciated the effort and the passion that he's put into videos when he's talking about COVID, because he's been able to explain things in such a way that help the laymen among us who aren't medical practitioners to understand the situation. So he does a really good video explaining about the death rate. And after watching it, there were a few things that I wasn't aware of, and so I'm appreciative of that information. So I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Vong. Hi from Canada. I appreciate what you've done. Keep doing it, because by no stretch of the imagination are we over this yet, and there could be more curveballs coming. So again, thanks for everything. But what I want to do is talk about the death rate, because people have these ridiculous understandings or come up with numbers that just don't make any sense. And so in Canada, like I said, we've now had a total of 23,500 deaths. Now, you would say, okay, well, you got 23,500 people that died, and, perhaps, maybe they think of by COVID. But you got 33 million people plus in your country, so the death rate is this ridiculously low percentage number. And taking the number of deaths, dividing it by the total or multiplying by the total population. No, let me try to explain that again. Taking the number of deaths, multiplying by 100, dividing by the total population of the country would get you a percentage. All right, and if you do that number, it's going to be really small. But here's the thing: that's not the death rate. The death rate is based on people who have contracted COVID. All right, so it's not 33 million Canadians. It's it's 1,096,716 Canadians. That's the base number. All right, so that's the starting point. Now, what happens is that as Dr. Vong says, look, there's two outcomes. It's either you recover from your exposure to COVID, in other words, you live, or you die. There's no middle ground here. It's either you live or you die. So the reality is, you've got for this example, we got 990,073 individuals in Canada who've recovered from COVID, of that 1,096,000. All right. And then you've got active cases. You got 83,143. Now, these are people who are currently going through COVID. And some of them are going to be hospitalized, some are going to be self-isolated, some of them are going to be unaware they've got it. or they've had it and they don't feel any symptoms. But these people haven't had an outcome yet. In other words, they haven't either lived or they've died. All right, that's yet to play out. And then what you have is the deaths, and the deaths are real. And in this case, 23,500. So instead of going, and I agree with Dr. Vaughn, you don't want to look at an individual death rate. What you want to do is look at a range. And so what we're going to talk about here is that how do you calculate the range? What could you kind of expect? What would be the normal anticipation of what may occur? All right, so in this particular case, what do we know right now? We know that there's under the best case scenario, all right? We got 990,073 Canadians that have recovered from COVID, all right? And we've got another 83,143 that we don't know what the outcome is going to be. But let's suppose that all of them survive. No deaths. So what happens now of the 1,096,716 Canadians that caught COVID, you've got 1,073,216 that survived. So you've got 23,500 people that died. So your death rate is 2.14%. So that's at the best case scenario. The worst case scenario, well, we got 990,073 Canadians that survived COVID, recovered. We got 83,143 individuals who are currently dealing with COVID or coping with COVID. And if all of them die, well, what happens is the total deaths now are the original 23,500 plus another 83,143. So now the total deaths are going to be 106,643. So again, taking it from the total, doing the math, it would be a death rate of 9.72%. So put another way, you got 100. You know 100 people, friends, relatives, co-workers, and 100 of them get COVID. The reality is that best case scenario, 2 of them are going to die because they've been exposed to COVID. Worst case scenario, 10 of them are going to die. Okay. Now, what's actually going to happen is going to fall somewhere between those 2 points. So when you compare that to the standard flu, that's significant. And when you talk about hundreds of millions or billions of people, even if the number is at the low end, the percentage is at the low end, it's a significant number of people who are going to lose their lives because of this. And, you know, if you just wanted to go and do it really simple, take the percentage of, or take the number of people that have recovered from COVID and the number of people who have died, you would end up with a death rate of about 2.32%. So one thing's for sure in Canada, the numbers are here. you get COVID, for every 100 people, minimum of two of you are going to die. Could be as many as 10. That's the reality given the current numbers. Now, for my own province of Manitoba, I did the numbers here. And based on, 35,688 cases, where 33,205 have recovered, 1,528 are active, and there's 955 deaths. Best case scenario, death rate of 2.68%, which is, significantly higher than the number for Canada as a whole. The worst case scenario, doing the math, 6.9% death rate. So in Manitoba, for every 100 individuals, if you were living here and you had 100, you knew 100 people, friends, family, co-workers, relatives, they all, 100 of them got COVID. The sad part is that 3 of them are going to die, to as many as 7 of them. And that's the reality of the situation. So for those individuals that don't want to social distance and don't want a mask and don't want to go and wipe down and disinfect things, and I'm immune, I'm going to be survived, I got my first shot of the vaccine. Well, you may be tempting fate, because if you unfortunately get COVID, especially now with the new variants, the way I understand them and the way the medical practitioners are communicating it, if you get one of these COVID-19 variants that is more aggressive, you're going to end up being hospitalized. It's not maybe, it's you're going to be hospitalized because you're going to be that sick. That's without a vaccine. And there are those people who are lining up right now in Manitoba to get vaccinated. I'm going to make an appointment myself, probably next week, because the writing's on the wall here. If we don't go and get vaccinated, hopefully it's not going to prevent you from getting COVID. It'll prevent you from getting deathly ill. In other words, you're dying. And quite frankly, yeah, I've got lots of things to say and do, and I got lots of time left, and I'm not going to go and, shorten it by a bad decision. But the reality is that if we don't go and take a really aggressive position to go and stop the spread and stop the variations, the variants, moving forward, the quality of your life. If you're saying that you've been inconvenienced for the last year, if you thought the last year was bad, well, just imagine what it's going to be like if we don't get a grip on the situation and basically wrestle COVID down to the ground. You're going to be living like this permanently. And quite frankly, everybody I know who's still, fortunately, still around to see this video, who's a friend of mine, we want to get back to something that's more reasonable and normal. So we're gonna do, and we're gonna look out for each other. But it's pretty apparent that this isn't over by a long shot. 4 to 5 years. I mean, it's just heart-wrenching. It could go that route if we don't wrestle this to the ground. But on the other hand, the vaccines are being there. The more people that get vaccinated, the better the situation is. But right now, It's getting real critical in my own country and in other countries all over the globe, because it appears, because we couldn't stay in place for the 8 to 12 weeks that we needed to stay in place for back February, March, April last year. We're paying the price for it. And I'm hoping that moving forward that we're collectively going to be able to go as a global community, that we're going to be able to put a stop to this, because it's in our vested interest for us as a human society to go and stop what's been happening over the last 14 months now and counting. So I'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you watched all the way to the end, I do appreciate it. It's a little longer than I anticipated, but I'm notorious for producing videos when I have something of value to say. And today was one of those days I needed to say a few things. So again, for all of you people that are watching and you've been masking and you've been social distancing, you've been isolating at home, you've been looking out for yourselves and for your family and for the general population of your countries and your cities, I applaud you and I thank you for that. For all of you that are going to go and make the effort moving forward to be safe, you're doing a wonderful, virtuous thing, and keep doing it. Again, I'd like to say special thanks to Dr. Duck Vong, who I kind of love watching him rant and with passion and persistence about going and keeping people safe with the COVID pandemic, and it's heartwarming to see that passion and that persistence. So keep it up, Doc, and maybe one day we'll get the video chat. I'd love to have a little bit of your time. Anyway, thanks for watching, and keep safe, everybody. Bye for now.